just going to get a bit more into the insulation of the van. You go see the flooring video so you can see how to insulate the floor and watch kind of the post there to see where everything's stuck in. But inside the van, it's a little harder, especially with the windows and all that kind of stuff, because we don't have the option of just not having windows. There's tons of windows. So there's a few things that I used and a few tricks because same thing as the floor, you kind of get one shot at it. So do it right the first time. In the ceiling, there's insulation, windows, and I'll kind of show you everything else. So up on the ceiling, I did, once I put the boards in and before I put everything up, there is a bunch of insulation. I'm just going to hop in the van here actually. You can see it around the fan. So yeah, you can see the few layers in there. So there is, this is really tricky, there is a piece of, these are the kind of that cheap stuff you put in the windows. Then there is actually a piece of the blue, and then there is actually a really thick layer of insulation there too. So this is the thicker stuff. So it's kind of the same as the floor. There's actually 3 layers of insulation that are up here, as well as you can always put a piece of wood underneath this. I found it harder to cut the piece of wood to actually fit the ceiling, so I just put the pine boards right into those braces I mentioned to you. But yeah, so there's the insulation there. Kind of does the trick. And you can also see the hole that's cut out for the fan. This is, or if you can get this in your vehicle, especially if you have pets, do it. It's definitely going to help in the summertime just to keep airflow. You know, you don't really want to have a little microwave oven for pets, so super important. But this is the hole that when it cuts out at the top of your van is pretty much the scariest thing possible, because there's no going back at that point, I guess. You cut a hole in the top of your van. So yeah, there is a finishing molding that I still have to put in this. It actually comes with the fan. So we'll finish that off nice before I take off. But just wanted to show you kind of that insulation in the ceiling, because that's going to be your only chance to see it. So that's there. In the windows, I'm going to basically, I kept a few windows open and some other ones closed up. So these are what are actually in the windows. So I kind of did a few layers just because the windows are deep. You can't just kind of, I guess, shove insulation in. So I put that cheaper thin stuff that you put in all your windows. I covered up all the windows with that I wanted. And then I cut these bigger pieces of foam. So this actually fits really, really tight into the actual window itself. And then this thinner layer is the kind of, I guess, the front of it. But you can see it's a little bigger. The thin layer of the insulation plus this one actually perfectly covers it. And then this kind of flattens it and covers up all the little, I guess, drafty areas that could happen. So all my windows have about 3 layers of insulation on it, which I don't know that you can necessarily go much more than that, but it does the trick. This one is actually from the sliding door that's just on the other side of here, which is the only one I can take out at this point, because there's a window behind here, and then same thing on the other side where the bed is. There's a window that's all covered up here, so you can see from the outside. I'll just slide the door here. Ooh. That's kind of the layer. Hey. So yeah, and then on top of it, all the walls, they're not finished up yet, but there's a whole layer of this on top of this as well. So there's one layer underneath, this lovely layer, this one to cover up the windows, and then everything else, and you can see it in the videos, was also covered up with this. A lot of people do this just as a min. It gets to the point where just this alone, obviously on your windows, definitely helps heat stay out, but it's not going to do a ton by itself. Same as you can see down there by the wheel wells where the light's coming through. It's all layered around the wheel wells. I likely am going to have to pack a bit more, especially under here, because there's only so much you can do for your water freezing, and if your water's frozen, you just don't have water. So I'm hoping to try and keep this area as warm as possible, so this little kind of cubby might be packed with a bit more insulation. Reality is, even at R7 or R8, whatever I can push it to, if it's cold, it's cold. So there's no 2 ways about it, but I did just want to show you how the windows are done in my van, and I'll go sit in the front seat and show you. There are a few windows I've left open, so I've just built the kind of the cheaper stuff here. I've kind of cut them perfectly just to put in those windows for privacy when you're sleeping or wherever you are, just to kind of stop it from getting super hot or super cold. This right here is the thin stuff I'm talking about. I think it's the stuff that everybody uses, but If you are in Canada, I did find it really tricky to find at Home Depot, but I went into Lowe's, if that's helpful, and they had tons of insulation material. So maybe try there first. But yeah, I don't know what's in the US or where you might live, but you should be able to find this pretty much anywhere. But super easy to cut. You just take an X-Acto knife. So you can cut it for your windows. And if you are, when you're going around wheel wells and stuff, just get the kind of fancy duct tape almost. Ducting tape, maybe is the better way to put it. And then it actually it's like a tin tape and it's super sticky and it sticks perfectly to this stuff. So you can mold it around everything, kind of like you see here. There's actually a few layers and then you can kind of see the tape. Just the same as around the back here, kind of all along here. I just have to close that up. I might actually cut that out and use kind of like an adhesive carpet just to finish it off a little nicer. But yeah, it did the trick.